an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering Doctor Who, Season 8, Episode 4. Listen. In this episode, there is something under the bed. It gets partially explained what's there, not entirely, and I'm not sure exactly the answer in the end. But I will say, I really enjoyed this weird episode. Welcome to Unspoiled. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Jamie.
So, okay, everybody, first, you know how we do. We asked Jamie, what did she think of this episode way back in the day? Tell me, Jamie.
I don't think I watched this one way back in the day.
What? Is this the first time this has happened?
I think so. Because this was the season where I was completely uninvested, and I went back later and binged it because BBC America would do like a marathon on Christmas Day. Christmas Day, usually leading up to the Christmas special. So I would just record all of them and just binge it. I don't remember watching this episode at all, though.
Wow. Huh.
So when, the question was, are we going to watch this season? Are we going to continue on? And I said, I'll watch season 8 and let you know how I feel. When I got to this episode, it really felt brand new. I don't think, I knew who Danny was, but I don't remember seeing this episode. And I probably had it on, but was not paying attention when I binged the season.
Wow. Okay. Wild. That's the first one.
Yeah.
Okay. Noted. Well, I want to jump ahead because I want to make sure that, we go through this with me sort of knowing what the hell I'm talking about. So in the end, we have a whole thing with, it turning out to be Clara who was under the doctor's bed?
Yes.
When he was a child? That's not who was under Dan's bed, right?
No.
Do we know who that was?
No.
Okay, so that's an unsolved mystery at this point.
Yeah, we don't get a definitive answer to this question that the doctor was trying to solve. This mystery of, are we ever actually alone?
Right.
Which I'm kind of okay with.
Mm-hmm.
I like that this episode had a lot of weirdness in it. It was creepy.
Yeah. Very creepy.
And I don't need to see that. I don't need the answer to it because I kind of like the idea of you think you saw something out of the corner of your eye and you turn around and there's nothing there.
Oh my God, you guys, can I just tell you? Can I tell you how fucking often that happens to me these days? I think, for me, it's a product of my vision not being great anymore. And my eyes are just fucking up. It's really the long and short of it. It's I got bad eyeballs and they betray me frequently. And I'm just going to have to get used to that happening more and more as I get older.
And you don't wear contacts, right?
I do, but not always. Right now I have glasses on. I sort of go back and forth.
I wonder, does it happen when you're wearing contacts?
It happens both. It happens with contacts and glasses.
How is your peripheral vision in general?
My peripheral vision is excellent, and that's what makes it so frustrating, because it's unclear. Sometimes I can tell, when I'm wearing glasses, for example, if there's a light behind me, it will reflect on the inside of the lens. Mm-hmm. So I'll be able to turn and be like, oh, that was my Christmas light behind me, and I just saw a flicker reflected. But there's not always a good reason for it. And more than once, I have had the assumption that there's a cat sitting on the floor beside me and have just completely accepted that, the cat walked up. And then I turn and look and there's nothing there. But out of the corner of my eye, it absolutely looked like there was a small shape sitting beside me on the floor. And I just, it wasn't even like I got startled. It was just like, well, the cat's here. And then I turn and there's nothing. Now, maybe the cat walked up, my brain adjusted to the cat being there, and then it walked away, and my brain stopped taking any interest because it was like, that's the cat. I stopped paying attention, and by the time I like turn around, the cat has walked away, and there's nothing supernatural going on in any way. Or maybe there's a tiny gremlin in my house. I don't know.
I was going to say, it sounds like your house is haunted.
This house doesn't feel haunted. I've lived places where it felt all the time like I wasn't alone. But that's not a vibe that I get here. And that's what's sort of weird about it is like the flicker is never really accompanied by that sort of like crawling back of your neck sensation that he describes in this episode. Mm-hmm. It's always something that I think like the cat's there, or a couple times it's been sort of an inanimate object. Like out of the corner of my eye, I will sort of think, oh, there's a coat hanging. And then I turn and there's nothing hanging there. For some reason, out of the corner of my eye, it looked like there was a dark shape, like a coat hanging from the wall. I turn, there's nothing there, but it didn't feel like there was a person there. That's not the feeling either. So I don't know what to do with it, frankly. I just get very annoyed nowadays because it's distracting more than anything. It's not even like it's frightening so much as just I can't rely on it anymore, and I don't like that feeling, you know? I don't know. I really wonder if it's not just going to keep getting worse as I get older kind of thing, which is not a happy prospect. Nobody likes to feel like that's what they're fucking going to look forward to, you know?
Yeah.
But,
we have this coat rack, and it used to be in a different place. And when we moved things around to put the Christmas tree out, we moved it. Mm-hmm. And for the first probably week, I would come down the hallway, turn into the living room, and it's dark when I'm getting up in the morning because I have to work at absurdly early times.
Right.
And I would like jump because I thought there was a person standing there. And then I realized it was a coat rack.
Yep.
But otherwise, like, generally, if I think I see something out of the corner of my eye, it's because it is a cat or something.
Yeah, I just, I thought that this was really well done. I will say, though, that fucking what's-his-face has the creepiest face of any doctor. And he really puts it to use in these episodes. There is just something so unsettling about him. First of all, starting off like talking to himself, where he's just like, well, you know, I'm positing the theory that what if you're not alone? And he like gets this grin on his face at the end of this monologue. And I was like, no, don't like that. Not even a little bit. And later on when he's talking to Dan and he gets in his face and he's talking about fear and like fear being a superpower. And I'm just like, man, it's a good thing that you're phrasing it this way because he needs any way to sort of cling to you not being the enemy right now because you look like a goddamn lunatic. And I would be very wary of you if I were a child. Like,
yeah, he doesn't have a reassuring face.
No, not even a little bit. I don't like it. I'm just saying. So,
luckily, Clara is good with kids.
Yeah, I feel like she's really the mitigating factor here because this dude is not going to make any kid feel more reassured. All right, so the episode starts off, like I said, with the doctor talking to himself. And the question he asks is, why do we talk to ourselves when we know we're alone? My, hypothesis is because we know we're not alone. And that, I think, is a very effective line. I like that. And I'm going to contrast it with another line that I do not like and think is irrelevant, really, which is we have perfect predators, perfect defense, Why do we not have perfect hiding? What? What are you talking about? We don't have perfect defense, first of all. Yeah, that's an effective defense, but it's not like they're invincible. Things still eat them. And hiding, there's a lot of things out there that look so completely like something else that it's a bit in cartoons to this day because they're so, like a flounder blends in with the sea floor and it's just looks like a pile of sand, and a bug looks like a stick sticking off a branch, and then all of a sudden it moves and you're like, oh my fucking God.
I saw a picture of, it was a plant.
Was it cake in the middle? Everything's cake now, Jamie.
No. It was a plant that perfectly looked like a bird. Like, perfectly.
Weird. Okay.
And I showed it to Jason. I wish I could think of where I saw it so I could send it to you. Because it's like the most random thing for a plant to evolve into looking like. And it's obviously some kind of defense. But, like, it looked like somebody made a bird out of leaves and stuff.
Weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder what that does. Because, like, looking like something that is not food, I could see that being advantageous, but what is a plant like?
Well, it's probably a defense against some kind of insect that a bird eats.
Oh, okay. Okay, I see.
But how did the plant know to make itself look like that?
With its plant eyes, clearly.
Like, I can understand when an insect or another animal or something evolves over time to camouflage itself. Mm-hmm. But a plant looking like an animal is some shit out of that fucking movie with Natalie Portman. What was that movie called? Annihilation.
I never saw that.
Oh, you should see it. It's fucking weird.
So, you got to look this up and send me a picture of it. I want to see what you're talking about.
Okay, let me see if I can find it. Because I'm sure I saw it on Facebook, which is not going to help me because you can't search Facebook.
You can a little bit, but you have to have used the words you're searching for in your, like, caption, which can be difficult to remember.
Okay, so I put in plant that looks like a bird, and it's bringing up the bird of paradise plant, but that's not. Yeah,
no, because birds of paradise look so not like birds that I didn't understand why they were called that initially. Like, somebody had to show me what... It was sort of like when you are told that constellations look like certain things. Mm-hmm. And somebody has to give you a drawing with an outline of the thing around the stars, and then you're like, oh, no, but okay, sure. Which is sort of how I react to most constellations. The only one that I can be like, yeah, that makes sense, is like Orion's belt, because it's 1, 2, 3, and that's easy. And the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper. Very simple. Anyway, so.
It might have been this, which is a magnolia flower.
I'm looking up magnolia flower.
But, yeah, I think this is what it was. It's, in my mind, it was much more impressive.
Oh. I just Googled magnolia flower looks like a bird. And I see that they're like, when they're unfurling, they really do. Yeah. But yeah, that doesn't seem like a defense. It seems like a coincidence.
Yeah.
Wild, though. I never saw that. Because I've seen magnolia flowers. So when you said that was what it was, I was like, really? I can't picture that. But yeah, I see that here. Wild. Okay, so yeah, the doctor does this thing, and he's writing on his board about evolution. How would you detect it? How would you even sense it? Except in those moments when, for no clear reason, you choose to speak aloud. And he has put his chalk down in between the pages of this book, and when he goes back to grab it and write something else down, the chalk is not there. and he sees it rolling on the floor, picks it up, looks at the board, and written on the board is listen. But it's his handwriting. And
Right.
it's almost like when we find out what Clara says to him, I'm like, does he have like a split personality here? And he's like manifested what he thinks is a companion for himself that's actually his fear. I don't know. But it's an interesting moment. The doctor being unsure of things when he's exploring a new place is one thing, but him being unsure of stuff that he when he's by himself, that's a totally different sort of animal, and it has a different feel to me as well, because it's almost more threatening because of that. Whoa! Jamie just sent me Halloween flowers, skulls, snapdragon pea turn into skull heads when they die seeds from Etsy.com.
They really do look like little skulls.
They do. Yeah, no, thank you. Nope. I am loving that fucking title, though. Okay, guys, calm down. So we go then to the credits, and then we go right into the date between Rupert and Clara. And
he hasn't gone by Rupert for a very long time.
He has not, but I'm going to call him that because, I don't know, he doesn't feel like a Dan. Imagine changing your name and you change it to Dan.
He's not Dan, he's Danny.
I said what I said. No offense to any Dans or Dannys out there. I'm not saying that it's a bad name, but I'm saying if you're going to give yourself a new name and pick one, why would you pick something that every office has one?
Well, obviously he thought he wanted to blend in a little bit more. Rupert stands out. He wants to just be part of the crowd, so he picked a very common name.
Rupert doesn't stand out that bad. I mean, it's a stupid name. I don't like it. Any Rupert's listening, you know already. I'm not offending you because you're already quite aware, I'm sure. So
come on, Rupert Giles?
I said
he's the best
what
Rupert.
I said it already. There are just some names. Any name that has an oop sound in it, it's just goofy. So
I had this dog. His name was Woodstock. And my friends used to come over and we would have little parties. And they decided his name was Rupert. And I was like, his name is fucking Woodstock. And they would call him and he would sort of wag his tail at them. And then my friend Colette was like, Woodstock, come here, Woodstock. And she was like drunk sitting on the bathroom floor. And he just... Oh, no, she was calling him Rupert. And he just stared at her and she went, Woodstock. And he walked over and she's like, oh, he knows his name. He's just playing with you guys. He knows that you guys are being shitty. And I was always mad at them for trying to change my dog's name to Rupert.
Rupert. Yeah, I'm sorry. That's not okay.
And I don't even hate that name, but I was like, that's not his name.
Jamie, if you were going to pick a new name for yourself, what would you pick? Have you thought about this? If you had to, let's say, go on the lam.
I used to want it to be Rowan.
Oh, that's a good name. That's what Miles named his son. Good name.
I know too many people now that have named their children Rowan.
Yeah, it's gotten popular. I've seen somebody else who named their child Rowan. Yeah.
Yeah, my friend Leah, her last name was Rowan, and she changed it when she got married. And so when they had their first child, they named her Rowan, which I thought was cute. So I don't know, because that was my pick. Mm-hmm. I just thought it was so pretty and unusual. So I don't know. What would you pick?
I don't have one either. When I was little and I had to play video games and pick a name, did you ever play the Wheel of Fortune on Sega Genesis? I think it was. Oh my God.
No, because I'm so old. I actually had the board game for Wheel of Fortune.
God. Well, you had to pick a name, and I would always pick the name Marguerite. which I look at now and I'm just like, really? Like, it's just such an odd choice. It's not even that I don't like it so much as, where'd I get that? Where'd I even hear it? You know, there's no like popular character that I can think of that I would like see a show or read. And so I don't really know where that even came from. But there's a lot of names that I'll like. I've always liked the name Lydia, for example.
That's our niece. That's her name. Jessica's baby, Lydia.
But then everybody has some shit to say, which is why so many parents don't like tell people what they're going to name their kid. I totally get that.
Which also happened with Jessica when she said she wanted to name her Lydia.
Yeah, my mom...
and a bunch of people are like, no, this. And I was like, Lydia's great.
I told my mom that I liked the name Lydia once, and she was like, oh my God, it makes me think of chlamydia. And,
oh my God.
Right? And like... she's not wrong. Oh, now that you've said it, Jesus. But like, it didn't
I told
even
Jess
enter my
that it
head.
made me. I told Jess that when I heard the name Lydia, it made me think of Beetlejuice.
I wasn't really like, I didn't watch that movie until like 4 years ago.
Oh,
so that was not really like in my consciousness. But
when I was a kid, I wanted my name to be Jacqueline.
Oh. I like the spelling of Jacqueline. There are 2 Jacqueline/Jackies that are listeners that I have to write postcards to them every month. Mm-hmm. And it took me so long to get used to how the name is spelled because there's like
the QUI?
Yeah. And I really enjoy the complicated spelling of it. There's something about it that I just find very satisfying. So I can sort of understand, like, you know, if you're a kid that likes things that are spelled in a way that feels a little bit wild, that's a good name for that.
When I was a kid, I felt like my name was a boy's name. And I wanted a name that was unambiguously girly.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So I liked the name Sarah. I liked the name Jacqueline. I wanted a girly girl name.
I hated the name Natasha. And I didn't really like realize it until later in life, but it's because I was surrounded by white people and I just wanted like a white name. So for a long time, I would pick the name Joanna for things.
I had a Cabbage Patch doll named Joanna.
It was just such a simple, straightforward name. And I loved it. And it was like one of those things that my mom would try and suggest that maybe in a past life you were named Joanna. Of course.
Your mom.
Every time. But yeah.
Have you seen that? It's not a meme. It's like a tweet thread, I think, from somebody who was talking about, she had a friend who's Asian and her name is spelled Xiu, and I'm not actually sure how to pronounce that, but I would assume it's like Zoo or Sue.
Zhu. I think it might be Zhu, because like I think the X makes a Z sound.
Like a ZJ sound?
I think so, yeah.
So she said, like, this girl, when she was in, like, middle school, there was this girl that she went to school with that refused to even bother learning how to say it, so she decided to call her Sunny. And so this girl decided to call that girl Bing Bong.
I love it. That's excellent revenge.
Because her name was Brittany, and she pretended she couldn't say Brittany, so she'd call her Bing Bong.
Did you see that like Twitter thread where somebody posted about how they were that like this white guy in the office kept calling her the wrong name? It was a black woman. And so she just called him by generic white guy TM names for the rest of her duration of working there. And every time she talked to him, it was a different one. It was just Jim, Tim, John, Chad, Ed, everything that she could like just, she made sure it was the wrong one. She knew his name well enough to just say the wrong one. But how angry it made him in comparison to his reaction when she corrected him on her name and he acted like it shouldn't be that big a deal. And she was just like, yeah, it's so interesting. You expect everybody to know and respect that. But when we ask for that, it's suddenly us being difficult. I wonder what that's about. So anyway, this date.
Back to Danny.
Is the most awkward thing in the whole wide world. I love that we like we do the same thing with the two of them here as we did before, where we like jump ahead to each of them reacting. Well, really mostly to Clara reacting to the memory of what just happened and wincing repeatedly. Oh God, these sort of interactions, winciness is just the worst. I know you haven't watched Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, but I can't remember if I've mentioned on this show how they do a song called The Cringe. And it's in the style of the Monster Mash. And you do the cringe. Ooh. And it's everybody like talking about a particularly embarrassing memory that they have, that they'll be half asleep and it suddenly comes to them and they just cringe wildly in their bed at this thing that happened 10 fucking years ago. And yet it's stuck with them and they just can't seem to shake that embarrassment, even though nobody else probably even has any memory of it at all. But yeah, like it's back and forth with each of them just saying shit like, she says something about dessert, she says something about, I don't even remember what brings it up. I feel like it's sort of like a good enough to eat thing, but he's like, well, she says, I like a man who moves fast. And he says, oh yeah, I might just go straight for extras afters dessert. Straight to dessert. She's just like, yeah, no, dessert. Gotcha. And then when she says about some girl that's so annoying and says, oh my God, I could just kill her. And he says, me too. And she says, well, that means something coming from you. And then what? And when we cut and come back, he's yelling about how he dug 23 wells.
Yep.
And nobody talks about that. I saved people's lives. I helped improve their quality of life. And honestly, I'm on his side here. Is he overreacting a little bit? Maybe. But that was also a really shitty thing for her to say.
Yeah.
Like, really, really shitty. Holy shit. I know a lot of people with military backgrounds, and I would never make a comment like that. That's just really crossing a line to me. And so him getting as like upset as he does and then her deciding to like storm out, I felt like he was the one that should storm out. I was not really feeling her indignation here. You know what I mean? Just it was just shitty. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, her storming out when she basically implies that he's still someone who would kill someone.
Yes, exactly.
And then he's like, people like you get the worst of it or something. Like, people like you, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, people like me? Mm-hmm. What is that supposed to mean? And she gets super defensive and then storms out.
Like, obviously he means civilians, lady. Or people who just, like,
right.
fixate on the fact that he has killed people. What do you think?
It's like a different kind of...
Like, it just feels like she's trying to turn it around on him.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's a different kind of misunderstanding than the first one that they had in that other episode where he thought that she knew that he had cried in the classroom.
And that it was a really, like, pointed comment.
Yeah, and really it was just, she said something off the cuff that under any other circumstances wouldn't have related to him, to something that had happened to him very recently. So it was like a coincidental, like, oh God, I didn't know. But this was, oh, well, I mean, you were a soldier, so killing is something you do.
Yes.
It was her making a joke that's not...
It's not funny.
Yeah.
It's not funny. Hi.
And like when she comes back, she kind of says that, like, I have a mouth and sometimes I say things without realizing I'm saying them. And let me just say, I can relate to that because I definitely when I get frustrated, I get mean, and I say things that are way meaner than I would ever normally mean to say. And I always feel bad about it. Something I'm working on.
I just don't really I don't like the whole, I say it with, like, my mouth runs away with itself. It's one thing to be
right.
like, I am way meaner than I intended because I lose my temper. But there's something about the way that she says it that I'm just like, take some fucking responsibility for yourself.
Yeah, she's acting as if someone else is controlling what she's saying, but really it's that she doesn't know how to control herself.
Right. Yeah, it just fell very flat for me, where I was just like, I mean, you're a grown woman though, and I feel like there comes a point where you can have like you can misspeak. People make mistakes. That's fine. But to zero in on something like that being his like military career in the way that she did, it doesn't feel like her mouth just ran away with her. That feels like she was thoughtless. You know, like she just was incredibly insensitive in a way that's very different to me. I don't know.
It feels like, it feels disrespectful, like she doesn't take seriously what he experienced.
Yes.
Like, I know people who've been in the military too, and I would never, ever make a joke pointed at them about them being cool at killing people. I wouldn't ever even want to broach the subject of, have you ever killed anyone? Because you don't ask those things unless they say,
unless it's your dad and you're trying to provoke him. But you know, that's a whole other thing.
But that's the word, is provoke. You don't ask those questions if you don't want to provoke, unless you are in such a good relationship that you can say, can I ask you something like really serious? Right. Like, did you kill people? Like, do you know if you killed people when you were at war? Did you, like, because you can shoot at people and not know if you've actually hit anyone. True, you know, if you're from a far enough distance. But did you ever have to kill anybody? Really means that, like, you know that you did. You can't ask those questions unless you're very close with someone. You can't fucking do it on a first date, and you certainly can't make a joke about it. And honestly, like, I don't know why Danny gave her a second chance.
Yeah,
I'm on Danny's side.
Yeah,
here.
The fact that he was sort of like, that they had an interaction that was sort of based on this misunderstanding already, and she knows that the misunderstanding was that she accused him of crying as a joke, but he had actually cried very recently in front of a bunch of people. Maybe just don't fucking joke about that. That's my suggestion there, is just to avoid that as a fucking topic. Like, what are you doing? What?
Or try to reevaluate your sense of humor.
That's a
if all of your jokes seem to come from a place of it's not a place of fun. Her jokes. So maybe you need to think about why you go for the places that are going to really poke at someone.
Yeah, I feel like that's just something that a lot of people could use as a piece of advice, is just reevaluating your sense of humor. And our senses of humor are often very tied to like our instinctual thinking. And so a lot of people take that so much more personally than any other like suggestion to them altering their behavior. And it's revealing, in my opinion, when people like react in that sort of way, because I just feel like that is sort of, in my opinion, it betrays the fact that you pushed back at the idea that you need to change anything about the way that you think. And you do. Just FYI, You do need to change the ways that you think. Everybody out there does. We all do. It's just, all of us are born and then programmed with a bunch of fucked up value systems and biases and prejudices that we need to unlearn. And if you really, truly don't believe that, you have a problem. Mm-hmm. And so trying to get people to like, oh, well, it was a joke, and realize like that's not a way to avoid criticism on a thing. Claiming it was a joke isn't a get out of jail free card. Oof, right. People do not like to hear that shit.
Well, and people also fall back on it was a joke because they think that that's a get out of free card. Mm-hmm. That, well, I didn't mean it. It was a joke. Like, but why did you think that was going to be funny?
Yeah.
and yeah, like that's the kind of pushback you get from comedians when you're like, yeah, all of those rape jokes, not funny.
There was an amazing Twitter like stream the other day. It was a clip from a woman who was on Twitch, and she was playing a game, and some guy in the comments or in the chat asked, "What color's your thong?" while she was playing. And when she responded with, "Really, what the fuck?" he responded with, "It was a joke." And she absolutely went to town with this amazingly eloquent response while she was tearing up this video game. And I was just like, how does she have the mental fucking capacity to ream this man from fucking crown of his head to the soles of his feet? There is nothing left by the time she's done. And play this game and like just get through this level, and it's no problem. Like, I don't understand. And essentially what she said was like, where's the joke? What's the joke exactly? That you dared to ask what color my thong is? So the joke is you? Like, that you're so disrespectful and that's hilarious? Like, really? Is that what it is? And evidently Mike Birbiglia has a bit about how people who just use the phrase, it's a joke, to excuse themselves from stuff have ruined jokes because they don't know what jokes are. And so they're giving jokes a bad name by just saying that anything offensive is a joke to excuse it.
Well, because that used to excuse it.
Ugh. It's just so tiring. Schrodinger's asshole. A man who decides whether something was a joke or not based on the reaction that he gets.
Is that on Urban Dictionary?
It was a meme that I saw, and I was like, that's really good, actually.
See, that's a joke.
Yep.
And when I say reevaluate your sense of humor, it doesn't mean like no, it does mean what you find funny. Because if you find things funny that are hurtful, that means you're a mean person.
Yes.
And I have a very dark sense of humor a lot of the time, but it's never at anybody else's expense.
I can't say the same for myself.
I mean, I'm sure there are times where something is at someone's expense, but that's not a constant. Like, I like gallows humor when people deserve it. And I'm very sarcastic, but I don't make jokes. Like, my sense of humor doesn't revolve around hurting people.
Right.
It doesn't come from a mean place, even if it's a little bit biting. And I think that people don't know the difference. They think that you have to bring someone else down in order to build yourself up and be funny, and that's just not funny.
Yeah, it's something that I've really kind of come to terms with, how much humor that I used to find really just side-splitting is based solely in destroying somebody, like in a personal way. That's actually what it comes down to, is that sort of method is really easy.
Yeah.
And not actually like something that is funny in the ways that I want to be funny. I know observational humor gets a bad rap, and in some ways that is deserved. But there is something to that where it's like, the being able to just cause people to relate to each other better, that is valuable. It's just being like, oh, well, you're ugly and you have a stupid face, which again, you guys, I do that sometimes. I'm not trying to pretend that I don't do that. And sometimes it's true. And it doesn't matter that it's true. It doesn't make it any smarter or better commentary. Like, this isn't something to be proud of. So, yeah, just all of us really just need to do better, sort of, in summary, how I feel. But it's hard, and that's, I think, what it is a lot of people go for the easy joke, and they don't recognize the fact that it's easy often means that it's not actually funny. It's just right there. And you know it'll get a particular reaction from some people. And maybe that's what you're looking for more than anything, is this particular reaction. And like, what does that say about you? That you want to appeal to that group of people.
Right.
Maybe look into that, you know?
And I don't even think that's what Clara is doing, because I don't think that she's even thinking about what she's saying.
I agree. Which is its own problem. So, yeah.
And it's funny how, and I don't know if this has to do with that they really do seem to be trying to figure out who Clara is in this season way more than they did in the previous one. They're trying to establish her as her own character.
True.
Because the way that she is with young Rupert, and the way that she is with the young doctor, is so good. Her instincts with children are so good.
Yeah.
And maybe she needs to, maybe that's why she's a teacher. She's better with kids than she is with adults. She doesn't know how to be around adults.
Which is sort of weird, because you almost have to be so much more careful with kids.
Yeah.
But like, how are you this bad with adults if you're good with kids? Like, how are you less? Is it just that she reserves her like carefulness, her caution for children? And so once she's around adults, she lets her guard down like a little bit too much. And it's like, girl, chill.
Yeah, maybe. Like, she's just her instincts are so spot on with children. And then when she gets around adults, she's just like,
Yeah. Well,
I don't know how to have this conversation.
Girl, figure it out. So this ends with her storming out, and the doctor is in her room when she gets back to her place and is insisting that she come with him, even though it's obvious that she's sort of waiting for this guy to like call her with an apology or otherwise make some sort of gesture, because it seems like she feels like she handled this badly here. And
yet she expects him to call her.
Yes. And she's not willing to make the first move, even though she feels bad. Which, I mean, I kind of get, because once you've decided to like do an angry storm out in the middle of a meal, then calling and being like, hey, I'm really sorry, from your apartment does feel, it hits weird, you know? So what really she should do is turn around and go back to the restaurant that he's probably sitting in waiting for the bill for your drink, girl. Also, I should mention that there's like some guy who comes up and asks if they want water for the table. And I can't tell if that bit was just for the joke of her being like, he'll dig for the water, don't worry about it. Or if that waiter is somebody, because it's a really weird shot where we just see the waiter from like the neck down. Don't see his face. And then he just walks away, and that's all the interaction we get. And it just felt like it was going to be one of those moments where the camera pans up and it's a fucking alien face. But they were too wrapped up in their little conversation to notice that an alien was in their restaurant. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I didn't think that. I figured it was just trying to show how wrapped up they are in arguing that they're not even paying attention to the waiter, except for her to make this sarcastic comment about how he'll probably dig for water.
Right. I honestly thought that it was going to be the doctor. That like the camera would pan up and it was going to be the doctor just being like, hey, come with me. And just completely interrupting the date with no remorse whatsoever. But that is not what happened. So it's just some dude, evidently, who walks away. Okay. So the doctor takes her with him, despite her protestations. It's too late now. You've taken your makeup off. No, I haven't. Oh, he's such a dick.
Oh, you missed a little bit.
So this moment, I'm going to screenshot this. This is the moment. I was watching this with Owen in the room, and we both burst out laughing at the same time because the doctor's face right here is insane. He gets her on the TARDIS, and then I think everybody at some point in their lives has the exact same nightmare. And it's my face. Look, I know I just talked about being mean about people's ugly faces, but look, it's not that his face is ugly. It's that he's doing something really unnerving with it. That's a choice.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
He looks like a bird.
He's just a step away from being a gentleman from Buffy. Like a tiny bit of makeup and it's all said and done.
All he needs are the silver teeth.
Dislike. And he talks about the nightmare. You wake up, or you think you do, and you know there's somebody there, but you look around and you don't see them, and you sit up to get out of bed, and something reaches out from under the bed and grabs your ankle. And this is one of those, like, ancient sort of fears, you know? Anybody who has ever been anywhere where their feet were dangling, whether you were sitting on the edge of a bed, whether you were like sitting on the edge of a dock or a boat with your feet in the water, anytime that you feel like you're being a little vulnerable in this way, there's a little bit of you that's like, anything could reach out and grab me, or anything could reach up and bite me, you know, that sort of thing.
I've never had the fear of something being under my bed. For someone with the overactive imagination that I've always had, that one was never one of my fears.
Okay.
I was never afraid of the dark. I've never been afraid of something being in my closet, any of that stuff. If I were to have my feet dangling in the water and I can't see clearly in the water, I'm going to be nervous about something biting me, but that's a real fear because there could be something in there that's going to bite me. But I've never been afraid of, like, monsters in the dark.
I will say that for me, it's a sort of, it's one of those things that I don't actually have that fear in a practical sense of things under my bed. Like, I have never sat up and not wanted to put my feet over the side, which I know some people have that issue. I am a person who, I sleep with all the covers on me except for one foot sticking out and hanging off the side of the bed. And that's like how I sleep, is literally like tempting a monster by hanging my foot over the side. And I'm literally so relaxed about it that I can fall asleep. And that's how I prefer to fall asleep. But I will say that whenever I am watching something and there's the imagery of somebody putting their feet down beside their bed, even though a lot of the time it's a totally ordinary show that's not a horror movie or anything, I have that sort of like, oh my God, there's something there. And well,
that's because it's been a trope in movies and television for so long that now we're kind of conditioned to think that something.
That's sort of what my point was going to be, that like he's suggesting that we all have this same nightmare. And I'm like, I don't think that's exactly true. I just think that there's been so many stories told that
it's like the Mandela effect.
Yeah, you know, like, or wait, isn't the Mandela effect believing that something is true that isn't, though? Where it's like, we all thought that the Bernstein Bears were Bernstein and not Berenstein, or whatever it was.
Or we all thought that, what is it, that Shaq was in, no, someone was in Shazam.
Was that Sinbad?
Sinbad was in Shazam.
I swear to God that that's true, too.
I thought it was true, too.
I think something's happened. I think that there's been some sort of giant conspiracy reset of our brains.
But wouldn't this sort of also be that? Like, his idea of, like, everybody's had this nightmare? Everyone.
I don't think so. That doesn't, like... that doesn't seem even related to me. It's just like, the psyche has sort of absorbed stories, but that's not the same thing as like we invented a thing and we all think it's true that's not true. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's a very obvious question that I'm about to ask you. And she first says, have you ever had that dream? And he's like, well, I asked you first. And they go back and forth. And finally she admits that she has, that everyone has. And he says exactly, everyone has. And this is one of those things that I have to assume that there are people listening to this show who have had this sort of dream. And because I haven't, it's not exactly like I had a sort of a version of a dream like this, but it was something hiding under a piece of furniture, but it was not this, but I'm going to tell it anyway. I actually, I shared this at the start of one of my Unspooked episodes this year because it came up in my memories and I was like, okay, that's actually really creepy. Holy shit. In the dream, I was sort of watching like a movie, which happens a lot. It's like not from first person. It's me observing somebody. And this guy's walking through a house that he just inherited from his grandparents. And he sees a doll on the floor just barely poking out from underneath this dresser. And he stops dead and stares at it with this like really freaked out expression on his face. And then it went into a flashback of him as a child in this same house, and he sees that doll sticking out from under the dresser, and he reaches forward to grab it, and the doll gets pulled under the dresser before he can grab it. And then we flash back to him looking at that same doll sticking out from under that same dresser in that same house as an adult, and as he's looking at it, the doll gets pulled under, and he hears something giggle. And that was the whole dream, and then I woke up. So, not as something hiding under the bed dream, but as something hiding under the furniture dream. Similar enough, I feel. That said, it's not quite close enough. If there is somebody listening who has had this exact dream, what was your experience watching this episode? Because I feel like that would amp it up a lot. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
There's a part of me that wishes I had had this dream because then this would be even more effective. And I actually really thought it was still effective. But I just am curious. If anybody out there was like, oh my God, I have had that dream. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Like, I could see that being really, really surreal and freaky.
I found this to be very effective, and this has never happened to me. I've never had that dream. So
it's a universal enough sort of like idea, even if you haven't, that it still works.
Yeah, like even though this isn't a personal fear of mine, it's still creepy. When they show all of the people with their feet touching the floor and then the hand coming out from under the bed, and it's a person's hand.
Yep. Definitely a person.
Or when they are under the bed, when Clara and young Rupert are under the bed, and then the mattress sinks down.
That was so good.
That's really creepy. And I thought they were going to come out from under the bed and there was not going to be anything there.
I did too. And so when there was something there, it was so much scarier.
Yeah.
Because I really expected this thing to like still be hiding, and the fact that it wasn't hiding anymore felt like a really bad sign.
This reminds me of Midnight in that we don't see what it is, and it's so much more effective for it. Because if they had taken that blanket off of that thing and we saw the thing, it would have taken the sort of fear factor away.
Yep, completely.
It's really rare that a movie monster or a TV monster can really effectively be that scary. But when you can't see it, and that's why I like suspense movies or something like Signs, where I already have a thing about aliens, but then most of Signs, you don't see the alien, you just see flashes.
Yeah.
that was so much scarier to me. Or hearing them walking on the roof, and it's the not seeing that is so much scarier to me.
So bad when they eventually show them. I was just like, why'd you do it? Come on, guys, this is working really well.
Same. And like, I still love that movie, but when you have the alien in the house, and I'm like, oh, it just looks like every alien we've ever seen is just taller, then it took some of the scariness away. Though that is my favorite moment of Joaquin Phoenix in any movie ever, is him holding that baseball bat. I just have never been more attracted to him in my life.
I think that the only monster that really lived up to being even scarier than I could have imagined was the alien in Alien.
Really?
Yeah, that one, it was like sort of the forerunner for all of the creature effects and scary monsters that came after it in a lot of ways. I think so many things took like pieces of its design because it was so...
Yeah.
And it was really, for me, there are very few things that I see and it feels nearly as frightening as the vague thing that I had imagined. But that was one where when you finally set eyes on the whole thing, it's just so much wrong.
Yeah.
That you're just sort of overwhelmed by it.
How old were you the first time you saw it?
Oh, I was like, probably like 20. I was not a kid. Because
I mean, I live in the world, and I live in a world that consumes pop culture in the way that I do. So I knew what the alien looked like before I'd ever even seen Alien. So by the time I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, well now I get it. Because now I'm seeing the actual alien and not just like an artist's rendition of it or whatever. Although I still think like it was still incredibly effective, even though I knew what I was going to see. Because it is a good monster.
Yeah, I just like, it's not like...
So I was like,
I wasn't
in my
living
late
in the
30s
kind
when I
of
saw
world that we are now where there's like memes of things and everything all over the place. So I hadn't really seen anything that depicted it in like detail. The only thing I had ever seen was the occasional clip of it opening its mouth and a smaller head coming out. And I think that I actually knew so little about the movie Alien that I didn't realize that was the alien from Alien. I thought that was like, because Alien is sort of touted a little bit more in a lot of ways as like an action suspense than outright horror, or at least it was.
Yeah.
So I saw those clips and thought, oh, there's a horror movie. And went into Alien thinking, here's an action movie. And it is, but it's not. So I wasn't entirely prepared for what the movie wound up being, to be honest.
I wasn't either. I had seen Aliens, the second one, before I saw Alien. So, and that's an action movie. And then I saw Alien years and years later. I saw Aliens when I was like 18, but I didn't see Alien until probably 7 years ago. And I didn't know that it wasn't a full action movie. It is really more a suspense film.
Yeah.
And God, that movie is fucking perfect.
It's very good. Owen and I recently rewatched it, and I've forgotten how many like long, quiet moments there are in it.
Yeah.
It's very unnerving.
Yeah. And even knowing like the chest buster thing, because I've seen Spaceballs.
I have not seen Spaceballs.
Oh my God.
I feel like we've had this conversation a bunch of times. Have we not?
No, we've talked about Galaxy Quest. I didn't know that you haven't seen Spaceballs, and I may have to commission that.
Okay.
Because you've seen Star Wars. You need to see Spaceballs. But there's a chestbuster scene, which I didn't understand when I saw Spaceballs as a kid, because I hadn't seen Alien. And then as I grew older, obviously, you know, you learn things just from consuming media the way that we do. But even still, knowing it and seeing it, I still was like, holy shit, when it happened. So, if you haven't seen Alien, guys, you have to. It holds up. It's such a good movie.
Yeah, agree on that. It's really just a lot more artistic than I remembered as well. Because there's a few moments where you know, it's a person in like a room filled with like small blinking lights, and the camera backs up and really just lets there be space for this person to be sitting in silence in this weird sort of setting. And it's just enough to make you just be like, yeah, okay, I don't like them being alone. I don't really like this, like, any of this. And it just lets you be sort of uncomfortable. That was part of what I really noticed about, there's like a scene where somebody walks into, what's the equivalent of like the garage of the ship, where, you know, like another smaller ship would go in.
A hangar bay?
I guess? Is that what
like,
you would call it?
If a smaller ship goes in there? Or like a smaller vehicle?
So. I think that's what that space was.
Yeah, it's like a hangar.
So there's like a long chain hanging from the ceiling, and the ship's moving. So there's this sort of odd sound of this chain, like just shifting slightly as the ship moves. It's just a natural motion, and the water dripping. And that's all there is. There's no music. Mm-hmm. And it's just really fucking unnerving. I did not like it. That was one of those scenes where I just started to like slowly curl into a fetal position because I was just waiting for something to fucking happen. And I won't spoil, but sometimes those scenes don't end with anything happening, which is somehow worse.
Yeah.
You get yourself all
because you're
worked
waiting.
up.
You're waiting for the jump.
Yep.
And when it doesn't come, you're like, oh, it's going to come when I'm not expecting it then.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, anyway, all right. So, this leads to him being like, all right, stick your fingers in the TARDIS and think about your childhood. And...
Sorry.
You okay?
I just swallowed wrong. I'm sorry.
Is it because I said
it's
that?
Cool. No, it's because I'm me. I can't believe this hasn't happened before.
I'm sorry.
I do it at least once a day.
And the whole, like, you know, her phone rings at the exact moment that she's supposed to be, like, completely focusing on this. And I really enjoy the sort of, like, look that he gets on his face as he realizes that she's being distracted, and he's trying to tell her no, because she sort of like smiles like she knows it's already too late. But all right, I'll just like pretend that this phone call hasn't completely like screwed up my concentration. And in the end, they are obviously in the wrong place, but he doesn't want to hear it that they're in the wrong place, even though that is so clearly what's going on, dude. He's just, it's a weird thing that I'm not entirely sure works, to be honest, because it's so obvious when she says that she's never been here and that there was a phone call that interrupted her thoughts. It's so obvious that this went wrong that the fact that he's choosing to like deny it feels a little bit bizarre to me and out of character. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't really know what to make of that. But, yeah.
I don't either, because we're still trying to get to know this doctor.
Yeah, that's true. We don't really, like, have a good grip on him yet. But yeah, so she looks up and she sees this kid standing at the window, and there's just sort of an oddness that makes her feel like she recognizes him. And she waves to him, and he waves back. And then she winds up, like, just going up to his room, which I gotta say, like, doesn't feel like a great idea to me. I don't know if that's just me, but he's living in, like, a group home, right?
It's like an orphanage.
Yeah.
It's like a home for children, but group home gives the indication that he's a troubled child.
Oh, I guess.
Whereas this is like a home for kids. It's kind of an orphanage.
Okay, so yeah, she like, just the fact that she decides to go up there, I was just sort of like, what are you doing exactly here, girl? I don't understand the mindset behind, like, going into a place with a bunch of strange children and really feeling like this is a totally okay thing to do. Like,
well, the doctor also does it and wanders up to, like, the night manager.
but the doctor does this stupid shit all the time. She's supposed to know better, I thought. You know?
Well, you would think he would know better. He's 1,200 years old. And isn't it weirder to have a man wander into a children's home?
No, because the doctor doesn't understand boundaries at all. And he never has.
Well, that's true.
It's just a thing with him that we know that he doesn't, like, see the problem with demanding information, demanding to be allowed entry into certain spaces. He has just always been that guy. So for me, that made, like, total sense. Of course, he's going to be really disrespectful and not think through the appearance of what this looks like to somebody on the outside. But she really should be very aware of, like, the overall implications in that way, I feel like. But nevertheless, it doesn't even seem to matter in the end.
No.
Because she winds up... she winds up talking to this boy and finding out that his name is Rupert. She finds this out before she even goes in, that he's going to change his name. And there's a moment there where it's very clear she is, like, thinking for a second, oh, he looks like him, but it's not him. Especially when he, like, says his first name is a different name. Mm-hmm. And then as she relaxes and he says, like, well, I'm definitely going to change it, though. She's suddenly like, oh, no, it is you. Okay. And when she comes in, too, he's, like, sitting on the floor by the window, kind of. She, like, comes in and sits on the chair, but it's very significant that he's not in bed. He wants nothing to do with it. And he starts talking about how he can hear something under his bed. She sort of does the whole, like, nonsense, you know? There's nothing there, but it's not that dismissive. It's just more well, you know, it's you're going to hear noises because there's people in the house, and she tries to reassure him that there's nothing to be frightened about. And so she goes under the bed and tells him to come with her to prove that, see, there's nothing here but me. And as she and he are laying there chatting, and it seems like he really is growing less afraid, all of a sudden there's this creaking, and then the bed bends down toward them. And clearly something is up there. And it is unnerving. I did not like this at all. This reminds me of, there was like a series that came out on some site that was like the most frightening, like, horror stories told in 2 sentences, something like that. And the one that really got to me was, I kiss my son goodbye, or I kiss my son goodnight. And he says, Dad, I think there's something under my bed. Will you check? And to humor him, I get down and I lift the blanket, and my son is under the bed. And he tells me, Dad, I think there's something in my bed. And I thought that was, like, one of the most effective fucking short stories I ever heard in my life. I was like, oh my God, you guys. It's like sort of on the same lines as the one where a girl hears her mother calling her from downstairs, and she begins to go down the stairs, and her mom comes out of her own bedroom and says, don't go downstairs. I heard it too.
Ugh.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I just really, I feel like this is some of the better parts of these kinds of stories. You know, they really managed to, like, compile what makes those effective in a way that it just gets to you, even if you know that probably nothing's going to happen to this kid. Like this isn't that kind of show. But when they come out from under the blanket and there is something underneath, or come out from under the bed and there's something under the blanket, and it's like the size and shape of a child.
Mm-hmm.
And she's just like, oh, somebody's trying to mess with you, huh? And I'm like, girl, you know that's not what it is. Like, there's no reason, if a kid is trying to spook him, that they wouldn't at this point be like, ah, gotcha. You know, this would be the moment to really like let loose with the punchline. And instead, this thing is just dead quiet and sitting like almost perfectly still. Like you could barely see a movement of breathing, and that's it. Why would this be a practical joke? It doesn't make any sense. And you can see her beginning to get more and more unnerved as they keep trying to determine who this is, but not actually like reach out to pull the blanket off, which I thought was really telling. Mm-hmm. That to me indicates more than anything that she knows that this isn't a kid playing a joke, because if she did, then she would pull this blanket off and just sort of be like, yeah, I know you're, get out of here, dude, go to bed. But she doesn't do that because she knows that that's not what's happening. I think, anyway. I don't like it. So, at this point, the doctor is just like hanging out in the room, having a read. And I'm just... I mean, look. In the end, it turns out that he can see the thing. But I would be lying if there wasn't a moment where I was like, does he not see what's happening here? Like, why is he having no reaction? Because this is basically everything that he's been theorizing about and talking about manifesting right in front of him. And he seems to be having no reaction at all. I don't really know what to make of that. And it turns out that really, it's not like he's not having a reaction. It's more like he already has foreseen what's happening here, or he's started to understand it already. So there's no need to there's no need to express surprise, because he doesn't like doing that anyway. Let's be honest. The doctor doesn't like to admit that he doesn't know what's happening. That's not his style. So if he feels like he's got enough of a basis of understanding, he gets to keep up his cool, unruffled sort of vibe. And that's sort of what he does here, is just be like, so, there's a thing on the bed. How about that? I'm like, yeah, no, but how about that though? Like, what is it? And he instructs them all to turn their backs to it. No. Speaking purely for myself, absolutely fucking not. Is that just me?
No, I wouldn't want to turn my back to it.
I mean...
It's just standing there silently.
Ugh. No. I understand the intention behind it, which is like to basically, first of all, it's not supposed to be seen. The fact that it's like hiding is like its whole thing. And it will protect itself from being seen very specifically. But it's just the idea of turning your back on a thing like this. The whole premise of the like nightmare and the fear behind something like this is that you are vulnerable to attack from this thing because you don't see it.
Yeah.
So I don't really know what it's after, because the fact that it's all a dream insinuates that it's not, you don't actually have to be afraid of this thing. Like, it's not actually going to attack you. Mm-hmm. Right? But So is the dream something that it creates to instill a fear to keep you from looking at it? Is that sort of like the idea there?
Well, the dream thing is they wake up from a dream and think there's something under their bed, and there is. They're not dreaming that something's under the bed.
I thought he said that you have the dream and you think you're awake, but you're not. And you sit up and think something's under the bed.
But then it shows like 3 different people, 2 kids and an old lady, who wake up, turn on their lights, like their room doesn't feel right. Or are we just seeing what's supposed to be the dream?
That's what I thought, that we were seeing the dream that everybody is supposed to have.
Because what's happening here is not a dream.
Right. So that's my question. Is what's happening here more like, is the dream meant to be a threat to ensure that the thing remains unseen? Because it instills a fear that keeps you from looking under your bed. And now, what Clara did was she went under the bed and took its space. And now it's about to sort of lash out because they are doing the thing they're not supposed to do. Which is like...
Yeah, maybe.
I think... I'm not entirely sure that I have that right. But... yeah, I don't know. But, they all turn their backs, and the doctor basically is like, first of all, definitely don't look at it. Second of all, you have to convince it that you're never going to look at it. You have to promise to basically obey the rules in a sense, you know? And the little boy does, and there's suddenly this smash of a door slamming shut, and he turns around and there is nothing there, and whatever was under the blankets is gone, but it did take his bedspread, which, I mean, rude, honestly. I love the doctor being like, oh, you human beings are never happy, and I was like, that fair enough, but also the kid lives in a place where probably he's going to be punished for his bedspread going missing, so
and it's possibly cold.
Yes, exactly. So Clara does a whole thing with these toy soldiers and telling this kid that they are going to keep him safe. Mm-hmm. And this winds up coming up later when a descendant has one of these as a family heirloom. The
one that he called Dan.
Right.
Who doesn't have a gun because it broke.
Yep.
And she says, well, he's the colonel. He doesn't need a gun. That's how you know he's the boss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought that was kind of a neat thing for that to come back up. Mm-hmm. So they leave, and she basically asks the doctor to return her back to right after she ran out on the date. And she goes into the restaurant, but she doesn't have her coat on, and she doesn't have her purse with her. And eventually, he does wind up noticing that. It took me, I was sort of wondering, is he going to realize that she's, missing pieces of her outfit in a way that's sort of it's chilly enough out that she should have a coat? And I would understand if he didn't notice, because she's so beautiful and this dress is so sexy that it would scramble your brain. So I wouldn't really be mad at him if he didn't. But he does.
The reason he starts to notice is because she starts lying to him.
Yeah.
And the reason she has to lie to him is because she's they're talking about his name, and she says, Rupert, and he was like, who told you that? Who have you been talking to?
Yep.
And she is a terrible liar.
Super terrible liar.
And it's someone at the school, I don't remember who, and he gets mad, which is understandable because he probably he's probably legally changed his name, so no one would know that.
Talk about blurting shit out without thinking things through. Girl, what are you doing? So yeah, this turns into a whole thing. And he's like talking about how he doesn't do weird. Meanwhile, there's an actual like spaceman coming in through the fucking kitchen entrance and gesturing for her to come with him. And looks like he's wearing like a Dharma Initiative patch on his outfit, BT dubs. I keep seeing symbols that like look like that to me. So she assumes this is the doctor, understandably. Mm-hmm. And she runs after him and gets into the ship and then says, is there, like, really, can you make this more surreal? And then he pulls his helmet off and it is not, ! Danny. What's this guy's name again?
The Descendant?
Yeah.
Orson.
Right. I love the doctor just being like, why are you all eyes? Get them under control. So Orson Pink is 100 years in her future. And as it turns out, one of her like great grandkids? Is that what we're alleging here?
Yes, it's alleged.
Right. And she starts, I think, to sort of put the pieces together when she sees the family heirloom and whatnot a little bit later.
Well, and he looks exactly like Danny, so obviously he's one of Danny's descendants.
Yeah.
But when he says it's just something one of my great-grandparents, and the assumption is she's the great-grandparent.
Right.
The time travel thing was something that is in his family, because he's like a pioneer time traveler for Earth, but obviously went into this line of work because of stories about his great-grandparents, or one of his great-grandparents.
So...
But he doesn't say great-grandmother.
And, like, I totally get what the deal is with, using the same actor to really emphasize that this is one of Danny's descendants. Mm-hmm. But, man, whatever woman he got involved with, really just her genetic makeup just completely fell to the wayside, huh? Did not make any impression at all. So... they wind up...
Well, haven't you ever seen people who, like, several generations out look exactly like one of their descendants? And it's, like, the weirdest thing, because they're now a mix of a whole different line of people, too. Mm-hmm. But somehow they just look exactly like somebody on one side of their family.
Yeah.
It does happen.
Yep. Yeah, Owen looks a great deal like his... maternal grandfather who passed away this year. And I actually, when he passed, I posted a photo of Owen and his grandpa, like, in a similar profile picture. And by profile picture, I don't mean like Facebook profile. I mean like their profile is showing. And you can really see, wow, that's... And honestly, thank God, because Owen's parents, it's a bad scene, kids. I'm so glad that he inherited somebody else's makeup somewhere else and managed to like skip past that, because he got very lucky. It's what I remember him telling me, his friend Sarah, who lives here in Texas, the first time that she met his parents, she thought that it was like a joke. Like, she didn't realize, she thought maybe like he was adopted or something. And later on was like, I don't understand it. How can he be so attractive when they look like that? And I was like, girl, I'm telling you, I can't figure it out myself either. I don't know what happened, but he just hit the lottery somehow.
Got all the right DNA.
Pieces. Yep.
Yeah.
So they land somewhere, and I think they land. They're not here already, right?
Right, they go back to where he was found.
And the doctor points out how there is no sound whatsoever. This is the silence at the end of time. And it's this like real dramatic moment until you hear all of the noise of Orson piling shit into his bag. And she wants to know, well, then how did he get here? And the doctor starts showing her clips of different things like that, you know, he was involved in from newsreel sort of stuff. And he went a little bit too far, is what he says. The last man standing in the universe. I always thought that would be me. So he's been stranded for 6 months, just met a time traveler. Of course he's packing. And I was sort of like, well, if he's a time traveler, I don't really understand why he got stuck here. Like,
they don't really explain it. It might be that there was a malfunction on whatever time machine he was using, or...
It was just sort of weird, like, that doesn't come up at all, what caused him to get stuck. They, like, if there's a ship or a machine, I would have expected at least for it to be used as a joke. Like, the doctor looking at it and being like, are you serious? You know, like, no wonder it broke. But
yeah,
it's not referenced at all or mentioned at all, and I just sort of thought that was a strange choice. So he asks if he can be brought to his family to his own time. And the doctor says yes. And there's just this sort of like moment where, oh my God, I keep forgetting about the her face is too wide thing. The doctor says, we can't leave immediately though. The TARDIS needs to recharge. Is that okay? Like waiting overnight. And this dude's acting really weird about it and says it's fine, but the doctor can tell it's not and sort of pushes him on this. And I don't remember what exactly it turns out the issue is here. When he's like, no problem. And the doctor says, it's a shame that there's only 2 people left alive in the universe and you have to lie to them, huh?
What I got from it was that whatever happens here happens at night. And it scares him.
Ah, okay, so that's it. It's just like something
he doesn't
being
want
frightened.
Yeah, he doesn't want to spend one more night there.
Gotcha.
Because whatever's been happening here, he doesn't want to leave just because he's alone. That's, definitely part of it. But the other part of it is that something fucked up happens at night.
Okay. So, but nothing like, because I kept thinking that there had to be like more to it than just being afraid. But evidently that's it. And like, I have no problem with that as a theory. Being afraid is the worst. And being afraid when there's nothing apparently actually wrong also is like in particular a shitty place to be. Mm-hmm. Because then you just feel like you're losing your mind, So this is when the little toy soldier falls out of his bag and, he starts to hand it to her and she gives it back to him. So we have then a moment a little bit later where there's writing over the door that says, "Don't open the door." And the doctor says it's always been there, but it only shows up in the nightlight, which is a weird thing. Apparently, at night, he needs a reminder. 6 months stranded alone, I suppose it must be tempting. Company being tempting. And I was like, ooh, that's a real creepy idea. That, like, even if you're scared, you're so lonely that you're willing to, like, accept company that's very questionable. Mm-hmm. And then they begin to hear this noise. And the doctor offers many very potentially reasonable, totally plausible explanations for what this noise is, even though They both seem very aware that's not what's happening at all right now. So, I'm trying to figure out exactly how to proceed because I'm forgetting the timeline of events at the very end here.
So they, there's all this noise. He tells them to go into the TARDIS. Mm-hmm. So they go in the TARDIS and then...
Oh, right. And he's like demanding to stay and yells at Clara because she doesn't want to leave him in danger.
Yeah.
And he's just like, well, then what are you fucking doing here?
And then the door opens and they have to save him because he's being like basically sucked out into the, expanse of space that's out there. And then they take the TARDIS away or she gets the TARDIS. I think he's unconscious.
Yeah, that sounds right. It's sort of a weird cut. Because we see him like hanging on, starting to be like pulled out the door.
Yeah.
And then Orson grabs him, and then all of a sudden we're like back in the TARDIS and he's sitting in a chair, passed out.
Right. And so she puts her hands back in the psychic link to the TARDIS, and it takes them inside this barn. Mm-hmm. And we don't see the people, we just see them, like, their legs, basically. It's hard to tell when this is, because, like, the woman has a long dress on, and...
Right.
It's a barn, and there's a kid crying. But we gather from the conversation that this little kid is scared, and they're like, how does he ever think he's going to be a Time Lord?
Right. And Clara has to hide under the bed in order to avoid being seen. Mm-hmm. And eventually, like, these people leave, and she sort of is, like, flailing around trying to figure out, like, how to get out of here, and she reaches out and grabs his ankle without, like, thinking about what she's doing. Mm-hmm. And you can hear the boy just, like... which, like, yeah, no thank you. And she tells him, this is just a dream. Just lie back again. Just lie back on the bed. And it'll all be okay if you just lie down and go to sleep. And I know she's trying to be comforting, but really she sounds like a monster who is trying to, like, sort of mind bend prey. So the kid lifts their feet back into the air and is laying down with the blanket pulled up over his face. After overhearing this conversation, she has figured out who he is. Mm-hmm. And she hears him crying under the blanket. And this is when she sits down and gives the speech about how, like, fear is always going to be with you, but you can make it a companion and see it as a superpower, which is what the doctor had said to the other kid, that, like, fear makes you able to run faster, more alert and focused and aware and able to observe. It's a superpower, basically. And if that thing isn't scared, then you have the advantage over it. And that's sort of what she instills in this little boy version of him. Yeah. And so it's a full circle thing where we find out where that advice actually came from. So she comes back onto the ship at this point and says, what if there was never anything? Nothing under the bed, nothing at the door. What if the big bad Time Lord just doesn't want to admit that he's afraid of the dark? And he looks affronted and then begins to realize that maybe they are someplace significant to him. And she has to get him to agree to leave without checking where they are.
Mm-hmm. Now, that barn that they're in, that's the barn that the war doctor goes to.
I was wondering, and then I was like, does that make any sense? I couldn't remember if the war doctor was on... I was really going to say Tatooine right there. Whoops. What's his planet? Thank
Gallifrey.
you. I was like, did he go to Gallifrey? Like, I couldn't remember exactly how that went, but okay.
The war was happening on Gallifrey.
I know, but I was thinking that he might have like traveled somewhere else for the whole, like, that big moment. I couldn't remember if he, you know, sort of took it outside, so to speak, or if he stayed home for that one. And I really I like this in that it just turns out that he's afraid of the dark, really, is like what it comes down to. But also, we definitely saw something sitting on the bed under a blanket.
Yeah.
So there's like definitely something. So we're sort of treating it as just like, oh, it was all in his head and he just needed to like learn to cope with fear. But also, there's something though. Like, clearly, I don't like it. But we have her, you know, doing her whole fear makes you faster, cleverer, stronger, which I like this in concept. It's not actually true. Fear really impairs your judgment, actually, and makes you do impulsive, stupid things. But it's okay. And after they drop off Orson. Thank you. She's Oswald. She hugs the doctor, which he tries to reject, but he is powerless. And then she goes to Danny's house. How does she know where he lives?
Yeah. Maybe he told her.
Well, she comes there, and they sort of apologize to each other, and then begin making out. Because he's just like, I don't know what I'm so afraid of. And she says, let me show you, and begins kissing him. And I was like, I feel like that's supposed to be like more romantic than it sounds in the moment. And yeah, the episode ends with her saying, I'm just going to leave you something so you'll always remember. Fear makes companions of us all. And we see the doctor looking at his board and underlining the word listen. And then the soldier with no gun. And that is the end of the episode. Mm-hmm. Dun, 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 dun. So yeah, I liked that. Felt like it was cohesive. Despite the fact that the doctor's definitely afraid for a very good reason. Because there's clearly a thing out there. But that aside. And again, we've got just Clara looking flawless. This dress is absurd. I don't know how she can, like, every way they do her hair is the most flattering way I've seen it done so far. Like,
because she's perfect.
It's true. I think if I were given a wish on a genie, buy a genie? I think if I were going to pick to look like anybody, she's who I would pick to look like.
Yeah, it's not a bad choice.
She doesn't look bad in any style that we have seen so far. And every single angle, every time, while I'm watching this show, I just keep being like, oh my God. Over and over again. I'm bored of myself. Because I'm just so continuously like, look at her. Look at her face. So I know that you're more than a pretty face. I don't mean to insinuate that that's all there is to you, Clara. But look at her face. Honestly, look at it. What is it like to look like that?
I know.
Like,
right? What is it like to look like that?
I can't imagine. So anyway.
So a while ago I told you off air that there was a suggestion of maybe you guys could like curate like what are the, you know, most important episodes of, you know, for this doctor, just in case like we weren't enjoying it or whatever. Right. And somebody shared a link with me from a website where somebody had compiled like all of the like essential Doctor Who episodes in the reboot and the ones that are like, yeah, you could watch it, but it's not essential. It's still fun. And then the ones you could skip.
Okay.
This one was one of the ones where they're like, it's not essential. You could skip it. I mean, there's some stuff in there about Danny. Like, this is a good episode.
Yeah.
So why would anybody say go ahead and skip it.
This is why I don't want to do the like skip things that are because, and I'm not trying to say that you are as wrong as this person clearly is, but the whole like there are certain things that you can skip because it's not going to wind up being important is just to me what you think is quote important versus what I think is important. Those are not necessarily going to be the same thing at all.
True.
You know, like, so I don't trust that sort of concept.
I could give a defense for why I said certain episodes of Clone Wars are not important, but it doesn't matter. Like, you guys still might enjoy them. They just don't apply to, like, the overall story. But something like this, where the point of that list I thought was supposed to be that, yeah, there are some episodes of Doctor Who that really don't matter at all.
Yeah.
And I would expect those to be the ones that are complete one-offs that don't tie into anything else in the series ever. Which this does not. This ties in because Danny obviously is somebody important to Clara.
Right.
And then additionally, this is a good story.
Yeah.
So why would you tell somebody, you don't have to watch that one? Tell me I don't have to watch, like, what was one of the ones? Like, The Crimson Horror. You don't need to watch that one. And you know what? We could have skipped that one, and it wouldn't have made a difference.
I really, like, especially with a show like this that is so wildly inconsistent in quality, the idea of only watching things because they have to do with, like, the main story is particularly missing the point to me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it just feels so... Well, it doesn't have to do with anything. Yeah, but the things that do have to do with something, in quotes, are, like, a bunch of those are just bad episodes also. So why wouldn't you try and, like, include... I just don't get that.
Like, if I were going to recommend that, when I told you, like, this was a suggestion, how do you feel about it? If you'd been like, you know, well, what do you think? Do you think we should do that? I would have curated the list myself.
Right.
Because I would know. It's not like, well, this just doesn't apply or whatever. I would specifically want to take out anything that's just so bad, it's not worth our time.
Right.
I wouldn't watch the whole season and be like, oh yeah, the one with this one just doesn't apply to anything else, so it's not worth watching, because that's not true with this episode at all. So it was like baffling to me. And when I was reading through that list and I saw this one was one that was considered skippable, I was like, what were they watching?
Yeah.
Because it's not skippable for a number of reasons, but the main one being this is a good story. It's effective, it's creepy, it's well done.
Really creepy. Really creepy.
And I give Stephen Moffat props on this one, because this is one of the ones that he wrote. And it's really good. And it doesn't have any of his, like, typical Moffat-y bullshit crap.
Moffat-y.
And he obviously has some kind of psychological issue with having to stare at something so that it doesn't kill you, or not look at it so it doesn't kill you.
That's true. Yeah, you're not wrong, actually. I didn't really think about that being, like, such a recurring theme, but it definitely is.
Well, this is like the opposite of Blink, where with Blink, if you're looking at it, you can't look away.
Right.
And this is like, if you look at it, it'll kill you.
It'll die. I like this, like, whole concept a lot. The whole idea of... With Blink, it's a whole different type of fear. You know exactly what it is that you're up against. And you are being asked to do something that's sort of impossible, which is never Blink.
Yeah.
But with this, it's like, oh yeah, you know it's there, but you have to, like, act like you don't. And what a different vibe that is, you know?
Yeah. But both effectively creepy, and both having to do with visual contact of some kind. I just want to know, like, what scared you, Moffat? What happened to you?
All right. Well, I feel like that's everything. Was there anything else that you like? Is there sort of trivia?
No, there was no decent trivia. The one thing that was kind of interesting was that Stephen Moffat wrote a short story, apparently. I don't know if he published, it must have been published somewhere, but he took that general idea of the thing that you see out of the corner of your eye. Gotcha. And turned that into this.
Well, it works. Mm-hmm. It really works. And it's like, you know, like I said, I've just been going through this a lot personally lately with thinking I'm seeing things. So, don't like that at all.
And we don't have any new reviews. So, guys, you're slacking. Let's get on that.
We do have some new patrons, though. So
Yay.
This week, I would like to say hello to Kimberly, Carlotta, and Hannah, who all became patrons. Welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you. And I wanted to also give a heads up to everybody that we are going to be starting One Piece, which is like an anime series, on Spoil Me soon. The first episode, I am going to be joined by the person who commissioned the episode for Wannabe. Wannabe is the name of that style of Spoil Me episode where somebody would like to join as a co-host. So, which I am actually really excited about because I don't watch a lot of anime and I feel like there's a whole sort of vocabulary to anime that I'm not really familiar with. And having somebody to go through it with me from the start, I think will be very helpful. And the other thing that I will be starting soon as well is Fleabag.
Oh, yay.
So everybody keep your eyes out if you are interested in listening to the Spoil Me on Fleabag. That will be coming up.
Oh my God. Fleabag's so good.
So, and also, I've already mentioned that Owen and I have pretty much decided on covering Clone Wars. Jamie has created a watch list, and she's going to break it down according to like story arc within the episodes. So I will be posting that everywhere, and that way, if people are interested in reading along with us, you'll be able to do that. And
watching along.
What's that?
Watching along.
Did I say reading along?
You said reading along.
Oops.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you want to watch along, because, you know, it'll be sort of confusing since everything was apparently aired out of order and all fucking weird. I just wanted to make sure that it was something that y'all could easily reference if you're trying to keep up with us and know what's coming next. So I'm going to be posting the list in the, you know, patron group. I'll post it on the Mighty Network, and I will post it on the main Facebook page, and I'll pin it on all of them so that it's right at the top in the announcements if you want to go and find it.
I will get that to you by Saturday.
Okay, cool. Works for me. And we just wrapped on Cora, and I just really have a lot of like feelings about that show, and I just really enjoyed it, and I feel like it doesn't get enough credit. We could be hard on the show sometimes, but it's really because it was so good so much of the time that we know it has the potential for it. And I feel like a lot of it was just they weren't allowed to reach the levels that they could have if it weren't for the fucking dicks in charge, which what else is new, honestly. The dicks in charge is such a really layered sort of comment. Mm-hmm. And I think that's everything. Rashawn and I are coming up on the end of Game of Thrones finally. The first book. We have just reached the point where the Stark family begins to get broken up and go their split separate ways. So here we
Rob
go,
left
kids.
Winterfell?
No, but Ned got gripped up for treason. Arya has fled. Mm-hmm. Sansa's being kept in the keep. And yeah, that's where we're at. So I'm so excited. I'm sorry, that was probably very loud because I made my desk move a lot. But yeah, I'm really excited about that. So I hope that everybody who's been listening along to that has been enjoying it. I was so worried about it, and I really feel like I didn't have as much to be worried about as I thought. I'm enjoying it a lot more than I expected to. And I think that I let HBO get in my head and make me think that the books were less good than they are. And it turns out that they really do hold up. There's a reason that he is so well known. And
there's a reason that I've, reread those books so often.
Yeah.
Even when the show has upset me, because it's not the character's fault. It's not the book's fault that, Weiss and Benioff are hacks.
They really are, though. Ugh. Look, don't get me started, everybody. I'm so...
And I don't even hate it as much as you do, because I actually do go back and rewatch the show.
Yeah, and like early seasons,
I like
could
the
see
show
doing that, but I just can't. I just can't. Maybe
give
me another 10 years, and maybe I will.
It was only the final season that made me... I mean, the 5th season made me mad, too, for some reasons, but the final season is the only one that really made me very angry. And even that, I'm like, well, there's still stuff that I would rewatch in there. So I guess I'm more forgiving of it because of the affection I have for the property and the performances. I don't know. We're not exactly rewatching, but we were, because I started rewatching when you guys started covering the first book. I got very inspired to go and watch the show while I was rereading along with you, and that just has led us all the way to season 5. But we've paused because we've been watching other things, but I'm sure at some point we'll be like Game of Thrones, and we'll get back into that shit show, because season 5 sucks. But
I'm really excited for getting into the next book and the one after, because that's when stuff deviates a great deal. And so far, everything with the show follows extremely closely to the book. So it'll be really neat to see Rashawn's reaction to some stuff that doesn't go the way that she thought.
I'm interested to see, and you guys will get there, with the last 2 books. Because they are wildly different from the show.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's really going to be...
Yeah, she's not going to have a touchstone to be like, well, in the show it was like this, and in the book it's like this. Because no, they're basically different properties.
That's what I'm really particularly, excited isn't even the wrong word, just really curious to see what she does with, being completely unmoored. Because I know for me, that's something that I always find really strange when something otherwise feels really familiar. There's a lot of characters that I know and love here, and yet it feels like I'm in an alien place. What is going on, So, yeah. Yeah,
it will be interesting because I read all of them before they got to that point in the show. So I was more mad at the show for making changes. She doesn't know what those changes are. So it'll be interesting where she's like, but wait.
Right.
But wait. Ilaria Sand was this way in the show. And you could be like,
Wasn't she, though?
She just sits back and doesn't do much in the book.
I really can't wait. Okay, so anyway, guys, I hope that you will all check out those Spoil Me episodes. I've been having a lot of fun. Earlier today, Jamie and I were fixing my profile on my website because the text wasn't visible for some reason. And I realized as I was answering the little favorite show, favorite book, that the answers to favorite TV show and favorite book series are both things that were commissioned on Spoil Me.
Oh, that's true.
We have Deadwood for favorite show and the Cradle series for favorite book series. And, when you use the word favorite, there's always an asterisk after that because there are certain things that I recognize X, Y, and Z was done better in this series or that series. But there are certain things that are but I enjoy this so much and so purely that I'm calling this one the favorite. And that is why I picked the Cradle series for that. It's just, oh my God, it's just so much fun. So anyway, yeah, I know that it's weird to go to a show where I'm the only host and there's no nobody for me to bounce off of. And I won't lie, it can be hard for me sometimes because I have to manufacture all the energy myself. And some days I'm just tired. And I might really love what I'm talking about, but I'm just I'm tired and there's just no getting around that. But I really think that certain shows, like, if I wasn't commissioned, there's just no way I would ever have gotten around to covering some of this stuff. And it would have been such a loss for me. I would have been so sad to never have seen, like, you know, I wouldn't know what I was missing, but now I know what I would have been missing, and it would have been terrible. So it's really been nice to be, you know, for example, Broadchurch, which you were the one that, like, sort of spearheaded bringing that title into things. And what an awesome show. Oh, my God. It's so good. And I'm really mad because I won't get to record on this last episode that I watched, which is the penultimate of the season, which fucking ends on a real big cliffhanger, everybody. And I'm not going to be able to record on it for like over a week. And I want to die because I want to watch the next one really bad. So anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I watched that as it was airing. So waiting week to week, I was just like, oh my God. Mm-hmm. So good. Can you see why I waited though? Because I wanted you to know Rory and the 10th Doctor.
And oh my God, he's so good in this too.
Ugh. Which one? They're both great.
Well, they both are, yes. But David Tennant is such a dick. He's such an asshole. Oh my God.
He's so good at playing such an asshole, and he's such a nice person.
That fucking moment where they're like asking him if they can call him Alec. And he's just like, why do we even have to like call each other by our first names? Doesn't it sound fucking stupid? Like, why are we even nice to each other? Who cares if we're nice? Whatever. I was just like, oh my God. And because I know people like this. Like, we all know somebody who's like that. And it's just like, why do you have to turn everything into a fucking philosophical debate, dude? It's your name. Sit down and eat your dinner.
Yeah, just relax for a second.
But anyway, so yeah, I really encourage people to check out the Spoil Me's. It's all on one feed, which can be kind of confusing for people sometimes on iTunes. But if you just type in the like title of whatever it is you're looking for, it'll show you just those in the search bar. So it's not too hard to find them. Also, I'm working on getting the playlists updated on the website because I recognize a lot of them are like behind and haven't been updated. So I'm going to be working with Candace on doing that this week. And yeah, I think that's pretty much everything for the moment. So anything you want to add, ma'am?
Nope.
All right. Well, thanks again, everyone, for listening. We love you. And until next week, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.